You want sales success. Again, a big part of being successful in selling comes back to your mindset.
How do I reset myself to get into that better mindset? I don't want to reschedule the call. I want to push through and improve. What do you do?
It's very difficult to have the right mindset when you're constantly reacting to things versus being proactive and chasing things.
That's interesting, right? Because then you're letting other forces, people, reaction, situations affect your mental state.
The way you walk, the way you behave in selling, you keep building on that momentum. In this episode, you're going to learn how to transform your mindset so you can achieve sales success.
Now, let's start off with a bit of a negative approach here. Because I'm a bit negative Nancy. You just lost a deal, had a shit sales call, whatever it might be. You're in a slump. Now, I've got another call coming up in 10, 15 minutes. How do I reset myself to get into that better mindset? Because I might be feeling it here and I'm just having a down day. I don't want to reschedule the call. I want to push through and improve. What do you do?
Well, we had a great episode around NLP mindset recently, and I think there's some good takeaways from that. So if you get a chance, go back and listen to that episode, because there was one key takeaway that I really enjoyed listening to when I listened to the episode again, which was about writing down some of your thoughts and putting them aside so you can disconnect from that motion or that mindset and start fresh, right? So just splitting and really putting those feelings and thoughts aside and dealing with it later, because you don't want that to impact the next call, right? So I think that's the first part. But I actually want to take it back a step, Dave, because I'll give you an example. Most days I've got a very, you know me, I'm very routine focused. Get up, train, run, etc. But what I often do the night before, I'm kind of planned for my morning. So I know exactly what I'm doing that morning, right? Got my first call at X, or I'm doing B, or I'm doing Y. This morning, I didn't check last night, and I got in, obviously trained, etc. But I got in and I was kind of like, and then my phone rang. You know, one of our mates rang, said, "Hey, can you do something for me?" Great. And then before I knew it, my first hour of my day was kind of like,
you let other people dictate your day.
I was like, hang on a second. So for example, and then all of a sudden I'm in that mindset of, well, hang on, I'm a bit out of control here. I'm not in that proactive mindset. I'm in a reactive mindset.
Yeah.
And the things that I knew I needed to do weren't getting done. I think this happens I see this with a lot of sellers. And I have a slide in one of our training sessions, which is proactive versus reactive. And I often ask the room, where are you sitting? It's got a bunch of tasks underneath, or a bunch of topic headings underneath. And it's interesting that the vast majority of people will say, well, I'm in the reactive mode. It's very difficult to have the right mindset when you're constantly reacting to things versus being proactive and chasing things.
That's interesting, right? Because then you're letting other forces, people, reaction, situations affect your mental state, affect your day.
Absolutely.
You're letting them in rather than protecting yourself, really.
And what's interesting, we think about it. If you strip everything out of what we do in our profession, really, there's one main KPI that matters: sales performance. Would you agree?
Agree.
That's it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much pipeline you create, opportunities that you're presenting to, etc. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the number that you bill every month.
Not even the number, that's the cash that's collected.
Yeah,
you can bill it, but the money needs to come through.
But so everything else is kind of irrelevant. Yeah. It's great. Cold emailing, cold call. It's all fantastic topics, but ultimately it's designed so you can create revenue. Yeah. And this is why I love Mike Weinberg, because he constantly talks about great sellers are selfish. They're absolutely selfish and ruthless with how they spend their time, right? And if those of you want to know Mike Weinberg, incredible author of Sales Truths, New Sales Simplified, one of the best probably sales authors in the world. And again, I love his book Sales Truths because it really kind of hits you hard when you're reading it, yeah? And I think that's one key takeaway is mindset comes from how you feel about, or a big part of it comes from how are you performing? I'm performing well, hitting my number, I've got that confidence. You get that kind of, but the way you walk, the way you behave in selling, you keep building on that momentum. When your performance starts to dip, other aspects start to get impacted.
How so?
Well, you start to feel like your confidence is a bit lower. You might jump on a phone and you're not as confident because you know that there's a bit of pressure.
You start questioning your own ability.
And then you might start to look for, silver bullet, or you might start doing things differently, which I advocate for trying things differently. But the fundamentals in selling don't shift, right? And often what will happen is we will move away from the fundamentals, and then we actually make the problem worse, right?
You know what? Look, you mentioned at the start about being selfish.
Yeah.
Now, instantly that has a negative connotation to it, but I think you need to reframe your mind where being selfish is a good thing.
It's absolutely a good
within your role, because if you're selfish and you stick to your routine, you stick to your tasks, it's going to enable you to have the impact, whether it's in your business, your life, your family, that you want to have. As soon as you move out of that selfish zone and letting other factors come in, and you get drawn to or notifications and you're getting distracted, then you're moving away towards your goal and serving another goal that's outside of your realm.
Correct. But again, and if you look at some of the time management experts, they'll tell you, like, don't look at email first thing in the morning. I know I'm fucking notorious for doing that.
I'm bad at that.
I'm bad.
I don't care.
Right? Don't look at Dave's WhatsApp message first thing in the morning, because let's be honest.
Yeah, that's your daily dose of motivation.
That's the best way to have a negative mindset. No, but honestly, like if there's things that we can do that will, because we want to start the day, and I always use this term. I read it early in my career. Brian Tracy, one of the godfathers of sales development and training, is sales is a transference of enthusiasm, right? We've got to have that energy to bring out to our customers, to the way that we tackle things. And if we're not careful, our energy gets kind of eroded, right? If we allow other people to start taking our time and we deviate away from what matters, there's only three things that matter. We've got to create, right? We've got to nurture, and we've got to close. Or create, progress, and close. That's it.
But man, it's hard. Like, we're talking off camera before about, a personal matter that, it does take mental space, right? And it does derail, what you're working on next, and you do get distracted based on that topic and that thing that comes in. It's a muscle.
It is,
the
but
mindset.
but this is what separates a good from the great, Dave. The great ones won't allow that to impact their energy for the next opportunity. And there are some simple things that we can do, right? Like go for a walk, take time. Like if sometimes, and we've spoken about this, the best way to get the right mindset is to put the phone down, turn the laptop off, and go do something else. Right? Give yourself a little bit of space, headspace, to go, you know what? I'm just going to reset. I'll start again. Put a good podcast on. Listen to some music. There are things that will have a positive impact from that mental dopamine perspective. Get that feel good going. Once you're back into that mental zone, get back to it. That's why for me, what works for me, it doesn't work for everybody else. I like training in the morning because I feel good. I've already ticked the box first thing in the morning. I'm up early. I train early. I'm ready early in the day, and you see it. I'm texting you at what, 4:30?
Yeah, thank you.
Right, but I'm often doing some stuff very early in the morning when I'm tackling things. Get it done. Go train. Come back. I'm ready to rock and roll. Right.
Yeah.
That works for me. It doesn't work for everybody else. But I'm not saying use my blueprint. Find the blueprint that works for yourself. But you want sales success. Again, a big part of being successful in selling comes back to your mindset. And I know that Mike says be selfish, but like what you were saying, it's actually not selfish. You're just protecting your time and protecting your space, because that space needs to be put and allocated to things that are going to drive performance outcomes. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to hit your target.
Yeah.
Your boss doesn't give a shit if, you handled all these customer inquiries. He's going to be asking the question, or she's going to be asking the question. You didn't hit your number. Next thing you know, you're on a performance improvement plan, right? Then who's going to save you?
It's your responsibility, right? And look, one of the things you mentioned before about, it's all right and good to say, get up, have a walk, and, do something, listen to some music. You need to create that space for yourself.
Yeah.
So it could be whether, if you're on that revenue role and you're taking calls all day, to have those 15-minute blocks between calls to allow yourself the space to go do that. Now, you might not go for a walk or listen to something. You might use that for something else. which is great. But give yourself the space in the day so you can actually, do those activities if you need that. Otherwise, if you don't, then it becomes near impossible.
100%.
Right? And you're just in that grind.
But also some of the basics, right? Like having your plan mapped out in your work area, have your vision board. I don't know if you've got a vision board, but I got my, with my vision board's right in front of me. I can see it every single day. So I'm looking at what I'm trying to become. I'm looking at what I'm working towards. So that's giving me the inspiration sometimes when I'm like, you know what, I can't be fucked picking up the phone. I'm going to do it, right? So you've got to create the right environment for yourself. Really protect your circle. Like if you know that there are people that zap your energy, we can try to delete them, but in some cases you might be working with them. And
what?
Right? I'm not talking about you. No, but you might be working with people that are gonna zap your energy. Yeah. So be mindful of that. If you know they're gonna zap energy, then think about how are you gonna prepare before it, how are you gonna prepare after it. Maybe you push those conversations. I don't know. There are ways in which you have to protect your energy. And I often say your circle is the most important circle. Curate your circle, right? Be very mindful of this because again, in selling, a big part of selling comes from the way that we show up. It's the way in which we bring energy to a conversation, right? It's the way that our mindset thinks about scarcity versus abundance, right? All this stuff matters more than anything else.